All right, and we are live.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to CACD's 77th annual meeting webinar series session 3, where we're featuring Michael Crowder, President of the National Association of Conservation Districts, and Rachel Theler, our Southwest Region representative of NACD. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Bobby Kettles. I'm the Executive Director for the Colorado State Association, and we represent all 75 conservation districts of Colorado, and we assist with education, outreach, and we come together as a unified voice at the Capitol for all of our districts in supporting their local producers. And with that, I would like to introduce our first guest speaker. We have President Michael Crowder with us from NACD. President Crowder holds undergraduate and graduate degrees in natural resources and environmental sciences, as well as numerous conservation awards, including the Benton County and Washington State's Wildlife Farmer of the Year awards, the Washington Association of Conservation Districts Young Tiger Award, and the Ducks Unlimited Wood Duck, Bronze Mallard, and Silver Mallard Awards. For 8 years, President Crowder has taught wetland restoration, wildlife science, and ecology as an adjunct professor at Washington State University, Tri-Cities. He currently manages farming operations in Illinois and Washington State and is actively involved in the management of his family's third-generation farm in Indiana. And with that, Michael, welcome, and I will let you take it over.
Thank you. Everything's still good with the audio? Yeah, okay, good. Thank you for having me, Bobby. And I see Clint Evans is on there and Gary Thrash, and I welcome them to this. I'm excited to be here and present to Colorado. It's such a beautiful state. I haven't spent a ton of time there, but I've loved all the time that I have spent there. And as Bobby said, I grew up in Southern Indiana. Have moved to Washington State. I've been here 21 years. Matter of fact, why don't I just start the slideshow, because I get into that a little bit. So let me share my screen. And okay. So just a little bit about my background is I grew up in Southern Indiana. I have my family farm there. It's small, 160 acres. I have 160 acres in Illinois, but I manage and part owner of a fairly large ranch in Washington State. And we have a big kennel component in the spring and early summer. We have a duck hunting operation, a big wetland restoration project, and my wife and I are pretty diversified in lots of sweet corn and pumpkins and summer and winter squash. So get lots of farming opportunities and love everything about that. And here's our corn stand, and it's self-serve because we're really busy, but I really enjoy the farming part of it. Everything's hand-picked and sold in our corral, so it never leaves the ranch until somebody buys it. So it's a fun little thing that we do. Here's my grandpa's farm that I now own with my uncle and my mom in Indiana, and I have some wetland restoration projects in Illinois. And here is when I purchased this ground in the middle. It was a cornfield and it was flooded a lot, so we put it into WRP program, and now we're trying to get oak trees to grow on it. So it's really a neat project, and it's been fun watching that through the progression. This is what you get when you have your brother-in-law that builds houses for a living to ask you to build a deer stand. And the reason I took this is the best reference that I could find between a few years ago, and then this was in July, and this is taken from exactly the same spot And if you look real close in the middle, you can see the ladder of the stand. So in just 8 years, it's dramatic difference. And we're gonna do a thinning project here soon to make sure the oaks can not and outcompete some of the other stuff. My ranch is in eastern Washington state. You can see where the Columbia, the Snake, and the Yakima rivers come together. Very dry. We had 1/4 inch of rain until fall this year. Everything is depending on snow in the mountains. So we have a pretty large water right on the ranch with 28,000 acre feet. So it's very dependent on the snow melt. So it's very similar to some of what you have in Colorado as well. So we have a big wetland component. Even though we're dry, we're along the river, and we manage for migratory waterfowl here on a big portion of the ranch. And in the springtime, we have a lot of sandhill cranes that we're famous for here. And this is right out my bedroom windows. Photographers and birders come. And then here is our part of our cattle component. We do move everything by horses. You really can't move them any other way. And part of the hunting component is we have a wounded veterans hunt every year. We have a lot of wood ducks on the ranch and do a youth program here, which is pretty neat. These are wood duck boxes that the kids build, and here's a wood duck on top that's been banded. And that hen there, I banded her 4 years in a row, so it's kind of neat. And then here is our irrigation diversion. This is back in the 50s, and here it is. Last year, interesting. They're fishing for salmon here on the ranch, which is king salmon. So it's pretty neat. They do collect tules on the ranch here to build tule houses. And here's what they look like. If my ranch is actually in the background of this, and this is right at the turn of last century. And we do some other, these are arrowhead duck potatoes, so other programs through the tribes. And then if you do all that habitat work, you get happy deer like this mule deer here. I try to end most of my slides with this shot. I love this shot I took of a mule deer here. So on to NACD. And I'm doing this without my notes because my notes are hidden from this. So the history of NACD is that the Soil Erosion Service, which later became the Soil Conservation Service, which later became the NRCS. It started in 1933, and then everybody's heard of the Dust Bowl and how terrible the environmental conditions were. Then 1935, the Soil Conservation Act passed, on through the first districts in 1937 in California, and then the model in 22 states passed after that. So it's been a progression of states, and now all states and territories have enacted laws and legislation that govern districts in each state. So this year we're celebrating our 75th anniversary. A diamond out of the dust of the Dust Bowl is the motto. And this was our celebration in Chicago this summer. This was the top left are most of the living past presidents, and the bottom are the officer corps. And the structure is there's just under 3,000 districts, 50 states and 8 US territories, and a 116 member board. Every state is represented by a voting member and an alternate. And we are the one voice for conservation. And, we provide that voice. We advocate for programs, policies, and funding for conservation on Capitol Hill and around the nation. We communicate through publications and social media. We provide direct services for conservation districts. And the biggest thing for me is that we develop those future conservation leaders. I'm really pleased with some of the NGLI and other projects we're doing for training and leadership training. Mission statement. I rarely read anything verbatim, but I think it's really important that Our NACD mission statement is to promote responsible management and conservation of natural resources on all lands by representing locally led conservation districts and their associations through grassroots advocacy, evocation, and partnerships. So that's the core of what we do is at NACD, and we represent all of the states throughout the US. Our leadership, we're from all over. Kim LaFleur, first vice president from Massachusetts. Ian Cunningham is Minnesota. Gary Blair is from Mississippi. Tim Palmer is from Iowa. And our CEO, Jeremy Peters, is from DC. So we're quite diverse. We're diverse in our farming backgrounds. Kim LaFleur is cranberries. Let's see, 3 of us have cattle backgrounds, and so it's very interesting, and it's a good group. I very much enjoy working with this. So as far as what NACD does for the advocation, the political influence, it basically is in 3 primary ways: through Congress with advocacy on legislation, programs, and appropriations, and through federal agencies via the submission of comments and relationship building. NACD also maintains membership in special interest coalitions and alliances. We have a ton of partners and alliances we have through different organizations. A lot of time and money is spent on that and building those relationships. We derive political power from our ability to inform our 3,000 districts, plus all the 17,000 men and women who serve on those boards. We educate decision makers at the local, state, and federal levels. And we build public and private sector support for local ideas, and we mobilize the public opinion for that. We have several publications, and I hope you have these. These are really good. We have an e-resource that comes out on Tuesdays. Hopefully you're all signed up for that. If not, you can go to nacdnet.org and sign up for those. We have a resource magazine that comes out quarterly. Forestry Notes comes out, and Conservation Clips is every Friday, and Daily Roundup is Monday through Thursday. So it's you get a lot of information coming at you, and I find it's quite helpful. So hopefully you signed up for those. And we have a national directory. We have technical reports. The big thing that is keeping everybody informed of what we're doing. Our resource policy groups are driven by each individual subject that they're working on. We have forestry RPG, tribal RPG, urban. We have all kinds of issues that we address and then bring back to our natural resources committee. So lots going on. One of our programs that we've been promoting is our Soil Health Champions. Over 300 farmers and ranchers from all over the US. And it's a peer-to-peer group that you can learn and help each other through that. I'm actually a soil health champion for grazing. I'm one of those in Washington State on the upper left, and don't fit into the normal soil health where row crops, but we do very intense rotational grazing, and we promote that as well. We also have our education hub, and Rachel can help you more on that later. Marketplace, where you can buy logos, awards, your pins for your directors, and all kinds of stuff on the NACD website. We also play a role in the National Conservation Planning Partnership, and that is really important that we make sure that we promote and have the conservation planners in the pipeline, and they've really done a very nice job with the NRCS, district employees, NASCA, and RC&Ds, they do a real good job of advocating for conservation planning. I do want to bring up that our annual meeting is coming up in February 12th through the 16th in Orlando, Florida. And I believe today is the last day to sign up for early bird registration. And our summer meeting will be in Puerto Rico, July 16th through the 20th. So we're excited to go down there and learn about what Puerto Rico is working on, and they'll be part of the Southeast region meeting and a NACD summer meeting. So we're excited for that. And then one of our task force that I created this spring, and this is a busy slide, and I don't expect you to take everything in here, but I guess what I was trying to get on this is the Climate Action Task Force is more than just a regional NACD. We have lots of partners: NASCA, NCDA, NRCS. We have NACO, so county. We have Ducks Unlimited, Wild Turkey Federation, and others that we're working on climate issues, climate smart agriculture. They work on the 30 by 30 issue earlier this year when that came out. We worked on an opinion piece. So this was the opinion piece that came out, and I think Bobby had sent that out earlier. I will transition into that. Let me get out of this now and stop screen sharing. And one thing that I wanted to bring forth here today is a discussion on 30 by 30 waters of the US, and I was hoping that there would be discussion back and forth, but I'm happy to just talk about where we're at on 30 by 30. And basically this spring, the administration released a preliminary report to the National Climate Task Force recommending a 10-year locally led campaign to conserve and restore the nation's land and waters by 30% by 2030. And the central recommendation on the report is a decades-long national conservation effort that is faithful to 8 core principles, including the locally led conservation and the importance of private property rights. The bottom line on 30 by 30 and America the Beautiful is it lays out broad principles, but very few details for achieving that vision. One of the issues for NACD is it doesn't define what conserved is, but I will tell you that NACD is supportive of the locally led issue of Secretary Vilsack and Undersecretary they are definitely working towards a working lands definition for that, and NACD is supportive of that. Now, we don't know where that definition is going to come in, so we've reserved judgment on supporting that at this time, but we are certainly supportive of locally led conservation through working lands. So I would invite Rachel at this time. Do you have any feedback on that? And I see Bob Warner came. I want to say hi to Bob. He's absolutely a wonderful representative for your state, and you're very lucky to have him. So Rachel, did you want to add anything to 30 by 30 at this point?
I don't have anything personally to add, but I did want to shout out Gary Thrash during the CACD discussions a few weeks ago about the upcoming resolutions and things regarding 30 by 30. Gary did a great job explaining NACD's position and sharing that with the rest of the group. So I don't know if Gary had something that he wanted to add based on our conversations a few weeks ago.
I guess I see a need to continue that involvement that Michael brought up, that that definition of conservation, that I say even in our own organization, it tends to look at it as more from the America Beautiful as preservation. And so continuing to emphasize that conservation is not preservation, I think is one thing I keep hearing from people. So, but again, thanks for recognizing that my input through our annual meeting. I mean, it was some tense moments there of people wanting to oppose the current administration's.
And Gary, I would, and anybody else that want to weigh in, please feel free. I want to have this interactive and not just one way. But Gary, one thing that is important, and if you've read the opinion piece, is that it has to have that locally led principle of working lands. It's not just preservation of national parks, etc. So I realize it is a controversial issue in a lot of places, but we want to advocate for those working lands conservation efforts through the Farm Bill, CSP, EQIP, others. So those are the issues that we want to make sure that's brought forth and included in if this goes through, which it looks like it probably will in some form, but we still don't know what that is. So anybody else have any questions or comments on 30 by 30?
Just to go off your point, Michael, I do like to remind folks, and we talked about this a few weeks ago, that, you know, if you're not at the table, you're usually dinner. And so just staying involved in this process, even if there's pieces that you might not agree with, I think is important, just to make sure that local conservation voices are heard as this process goes forward. And I think NACD and the associations have done a great job staying engaged. Yeah,
and I know Cindy Layers from Colorado, and she's a representative from the Climate Action Task Force, and has been one of our more vocal members of that. And I appreciate all the time that she's put into it. And we brought forth quite a few ideas. The Climate Action Task Force originally started to address the carbon markets, if you will, but it quickly transformed in the early stages of the Biden administration as 30 by 30 came out and some other issues. So we tasked them to address that, and that's where the opinion piece came out. And I was real proud of the work that went on through there. So another issue that we've been working on is WOTUS and Waters of the U.S. And I was a member of the EPA Farm, Ranch, and Rural Community Committee, and we report directly to the administrator of the EPA, and I represented NACD on that. Not a WOTUS expert by any means, but I have a good grasp of the issues. And so in the 2015 WOTUS definition, the Obama administration changed the definition, broadened the definition, and then you have the Navigable Waters Protection Rule that was finalized in 2020 through court decisions that had been stayed and reprimanded back to the 2015 rule. So we spent a lot of time at the EPA figuring out what the issues were. We were looking for good and bad examples through agriculture. And it kind of boils down to the exemptions. Ag has a lot of exemptions, so we wanted to make sure those exemptions stayed in place. There were 30 organizations on the FRRCC, and we certainly didn't agree on every issue, but we came to consensus fairly easy on that. And if anybody has any questions on WOTUS, I'm happy to give any more updates or any finer details if anybody has any questions on that. what I would say is there's going to be roundtables coming up here in the near future on that, and as many people that could come forward and give real world examples of where it works, where it doesn't, the issues that agriculture has had with WOTUS, and any definition of that. This is a very important time to make sure your feelings are heard now on that. Rachel, have you worked much with WOTUS here in the Southeast?
A little bit, yeah. At our last meeting, the Southwest region decided they wanted to participate in a roundtable application. And so we've submitted that. We haven't heard back yet, but if we're selected, I think that'll be a great opportunity to have our voices heard in that process for sure. Good.
Well, one of the other issues that NACD is looking at right now is Build Back Better, the reconciliation process that's going right now. Very high level, 1.75 trillion passed the House. 28 billion were designated for agriculture, 9 billion for EQIP, 7 billion for RCCP, 4 billion for CSP, 1.7 billion for ASEP, and then there's a $5 billion cover crop new program through FSA. So we've definitely keeping our eye on that. Senator Schumer is hoping to get that passed through reconciliation by Christmas. That seems like a tough ask to get that done between now and then, but one thing that's come up here very recently, it's in the Senate version, there was 2.1 billion for conservation technical assistance, and there was only 200 million in the House. So that, for the amount of money that the House put in there, 200 million is not enough for the conservation technical assistance. Get all of that money onto the ground. So we think that's a fix in the Senate version, but Senator Manchin from West Virginia is said consistently that he has concerns with that amount of funds going out, and there's concerns of inflation and some other issues. Just generally, that's really a lot of money. So we're watching that. We don't know how that's going to end up, but we're definitely keeping our ear to the ground on that. The appropriations issue is there's a continuing resolution until January, and that will have to pass to make sure that the government is funded. So there's also a debt ceiling. It seems like every few weeks now, but they punt that off to have the debt ceiling, and that will be it's either this week or next week. And as you look forward to next year, Biden will release a budget, and that kind of shows you where their priorities will be for the next year. And it's an election year this year, so there won't be a whole lot that likely will get done. It will be a very contentious election, probably in all 50 states and over the US. So we're definitely watching that. Farm bill is going to be ramping up really soon. It ends on fiscal year 23, so we are fastly approaching where we need to be on that. We'll start working on that in February. We'll name a Farm Bill task force, and it really likely will depend on if the Republicans or Democrat in charge, because it won't look the same. If the Republicans are in charge, it will look vastly different than if the Democrats are in charge. And they'll start having hearings within the next few months in the House and the Senate of how the current Farm Bill has performed, the good, the bad, what's the priorities, and again, the priorities will depend on the party in charge and who's the chairman. So we're looking forward to that. We know that'll be a more than a year-long grind, making sure that our priorities are, we'll first figure out what our priorities are for NACD, and and then make sure we implement that. So that's a lot of work, and I've been through that a couple times and looking forward to doing that over the next year. So, Rachel, if you want to give your presentation, then we can take any questions at all after that.
Sure.
Rachel, I would just like to give you a formal introduction, if you don't mind.
Good.
Real quick. For those of you that I think everybody on here knows Rachel, but Rachel Theler is our Southwest region representative for the National Association of Conservation Districts. She previously worked for the Colorado Department of Agriculture, where she served for nearly 6 years as their regional field specialist and communications coordinator for the Colorado State Conservation Board, along with giving me a lot of help. So through her service with CACD, Rachel served as the NASCA representative on the NAC Forestry RPG. And Rachel has also worked for the Purgatoire Watershed Partnership in Colorado and the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Communication Studies from the University of Montana, and she currently lives in beautiful Buena Vista. And with that, Rachel, I'll give it back to you.
Great, thank you. All right, well, as Bobby said, a lot of you probably know me already, and it's great to see you all again, at least virtually. But just in case you don't, I'm Rachel Theler, and I thought I would just share a little bit about myself before we get going. So I was actually born and raised in Northwest Montana, about 40 miles from the Canadian border. So grew up there, spent a lot of summers in southern British Columbia on a cattle ranch. And then my family is all foresters and loggers, mostly. So that was my childhood, and then went to Missoula for school, lived there a little while. Then my husband and I, my husband's from Colorado originally, moved to Trinidad, Colorado. And then decided we wanted to just hunt and fish all the time, so moved to Fairbanks, Alaska, but quickly learned that being cold and dark all the time gets a little old, so moved back to Colorado. We were in Pueblo for about 4 or 5 years. Then we were in Westcliff, and now, as Bobby said, we're in Buena Vista. And in my free time, I'm usually hunting or fishing or floating down a river in a canoe. Thankfully not fighting fire anymore, but my husband still does. So I get cool pictures from that still, at least. And as you know, I was with the Colorado State Conservation Board before I came to NACD in March. So I was there for almost 6 years, helping the conservation districts in the southeast part of the state. And then also worked for the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation and the Purgatoire Watershed Partnership. But I wanted to start out my section of the night with talking about the superpower of NACD, and that's really what drew me to work for NACD, and that is that local voices turn into national policy. And I really feel like that is just such a neat concept, that things that are happening on the ground in Colorado or Idaho or wherever you are can be transformed into something that has a national impact. I also wanted to share with everybody that NACD has a new membership benefit, and that is insurance. So we were hearing from a lot of districts that insurance was something that they wanted to provide their employees to be more competitive as employers, but a lot of times it's cost prohibitive. And so NACD partnered with Mercer Insurance to provide this benefit to Gold Plus members and higher. So the Gold Plus level is $775 annually. And so you're able to access this insurance benefit And it's not just health insurance, there's dental and vision and life insurance and auto and home insurance. It's really a broad range of products that are available. And NACD didn't want people to up their membership level to have access to this and then find out that, this isn't really for us. So there is a new option coming soon. It's a shop before you buy option where you can explore what the plans are, if it's really going to be a good value for you before you submit your membership payment. If you want to learn more about the specifics of the insurance, you can go to their website. I am not the greatest person to ask for specific insurance questions, so it's best to go to them. But you can come to me first if you have other questions, of course. And another neat thing is it's not just available for district employees, it's also for supervisors and dependents. So it's not just if you're employed, it's if you're a board supervisor as well. And as I mentioned, it's not just health insurance. There's lots of other options for this plan. Unfortunately, it's just available to current district supervisors, staff, and their dependents. If you were with the district but aren't any longer, you're not eligible at this time. And coverage is available the first month following enrollment. So if you need to have your gallbladder out tomorrow, this might not be the best choice for you. But if you can schedule it for a month, then I suggest that you look into it. So like I said, if you'd like to learn more about this new option, there will be a shop before you buy, and there will be an announcement about that made when that's live. So you can be alerted when that's available to you, and you can always call them or go to their website, or you can just reach out to me and I can point you in the right direction if I don't have the specific answer. All right. I also wanted to talk about forest health and fire mitigation. Obviously, in our region, in our state, wildfires are a big issue. And ironically, my husband took this picture from this plane right before he jumped out of it when he was a smoke jumper. So I thought I'd throw that in there. That's the Gila Wilderness down in New Mexico. But anyway, so we have lots of resources available regarding forest health. So if you haven't heard already, and Michael mentioned this earlier, that we have various resource policy groups, and one of them is a forestry resource policy group. And they have a lot of great resources available to people. You can always just tune into their meetings if you're interested, but they also put together some webinars, and they do quite a few webinars. And if you've missed them, they're all recorded and available on our website for free. And I will be sure to alert you all of any upcoming ones, but there's some really neat ones out there. So I encourage you to check those out. We also have our forestry notes publication that Michael mentioned earlier, and that has some great information in it as well. And there's also a coming soon community wildfire desk guide. So this is a guide that will help communities pre and post fire with their procedures as to how they react, how do they prepare. So I will share that widely when that becomes available. And also, since fire is such a big deal in the Southwest, I'm trying to collect ideas and examples from our region that we can draw on and share with other districts within our region. So if you are a district, or you know of a district or a project that is really innovative or was very successful as far as fire mitigation or forest health or post-fire recovery, please reach out to me, and so I can pick your brain a little bit about what those projects were and how we could share that information with other districts in the region. I also wanted to talk about our technical assistance grants. So we've been able to provide a lot of funding to districts for these technical assistance grants. And it's been really well received. And I really like this program because a lot of times you hear about grants that are available for projects, which are of course really great, but it's hard to find funding for staff and people that can actually implement these projects. And our technical assistance program fills that gap and allows districts to find staff and contractors if they need to actually do these projects that they know they need to do. And so so far, we've already provided about $47 million in funding, and this is through our partnership with the NRCS. And we've been able to provide grants to all 50 states and 3 of our territories. So I'm really excited about this program. It's also had a great impact in Colorado. So we've actually provided over $500,000 in grant funding through this program to Colorado, and quite a few districts have taken advantage of this program. And so if you have questions or if you have a project in mind that you think might fit into this grant, I know it's a little ways off until our next request for proposals. I think those will come out beginning of the summer into the spring, but just feel free to call me or email me now so we can start thinking about it, and so you can be ready if this is something that you're interested in. We also have our urban and community grants. And since 2016, we've provided $6 million in funding through this urban and community grant program. The Jefferson County Conservation District has taken advantage of this program twice since its inception. And I'm really wanted to promote this because the request for proposals for this grant is actually open right now through January 31st. So you've got a little bit of time to think about a project. And I also really want to stress the community part of this program. Sometimes people hear urban and they think, oh, it's only for Denver or Pueblo or some big city on the Front Range, but there is no population requirement. It's just a community-centered grant program rather than an individual landowner or something like that. So we all live in communities, and so we're all of the districts in Colorado are eligible for this grant. So if you have any questions about this one, like I said, it's going to close January 31st. Just reach out to me and we can talk about it. And Michael did mention this already, but we do have our Conservation Education Hub, where there's a lot of great resources for districts for free to use in schools or to use with their own education programs. And we also, thanks to a district in Puerto Rico, they went ahead and translated the pollinator guide into Spanish for us. And so if you need a Spanish language resource, we also have that available in the pollinator guide. So I really encourage you all to check out that part of our website. Like I said, it's all free and it's really great information. So I also wanted to focus on some other, oh, Bobby, did you have a question?
Is that something, Rachel, that they're going to continue working on, translating the rest of the material as we go along into Spanish, or?
I'm not sure. I know that the district in Puerto Rico did this because they needed a Spanish language resource, and so they just shared it with NACD, and I'm not sure if there are plans to translate other resources, but I will ask, and I'm sure there's a need out there. So I will ask our comms and our education people and see if there's a plan for that in the future.
Okay, I think that would be very beneficial. If that's,
yeah, I agree. Thanks, Bobby. And I also wanted to provide some other updates. Michael covered a lot of these already, but as I said, our urban agriculture grants are open through the 31st. Resolution deadline is the end of this month. Our meeting is coming up, and yes, the early bird registration is ending. Today is, or actually I think tomorrow might be the last day for the early bird. I also wanted to promote, and some of you are probably sick of hearing this, but we do have a Southwest region newsletter, and I put it out monthly. And if you aren't receiving it, please go to the Southwest region section of the website and sign up for it, or you can just email me and say, I want to be on your list. I'm not on your list, and I will add you. But I've really been trying to make this a resource for the region to enhance the cohesiveness of the states within our region. because there's a lot of great things going on in the Southwest. And sometimes I think we can become a little bit siloed in our projects and our ideas. And so that's really my goal, is to make it more of a community, make it a resource for districts and states where they can share things or invite other states and districts to events, and really just make it a conversation. So if you're not on that list, please let me know. We also have, I just received that we have dates for our Southwest Pacific region meeting. So some of you got to come up to Jackson, Wyoming this August. Wyoming was a great host for us. And as you know, the Southwest region and the Pacific region, we share an annual or a region meeting. And I think that's a really great opportunity for partnerships. And so each region alternates every year as to who's going to host. So this coming year, it is Hawaii's turn to host. So it will be in Maui, September 8th through the 10th. And we don't have too many details on that yet, but I'll be sure to share that with everybody as more details emerge. And I started this presentation off with superpower of NACD. And I wanted to reiterate, you know, a superpower doesn't exist without a superhero. And so we are only what we are because of the participation of you all. And so I just want to thank you guys for participating in your state association and in NACD, because we really couldn't do what we do without you. I also wanted to just put this ask out there. You know, I'm still pretty new. I've been on with NACD since March, but I really want to be your resource and provide the best services that I can, and have NACD provide services that are really helpful to you. So please don't ever hesitate to call me or email me or text me. If there's something you really like, I want to hear about it. Of course, everybody likes to hear good things, but if there is something that you want that we're not providing, I want to hear about that too. If there's something that could be improved. I mean, that's the only way we're going to get better, is if you all tell us what you need and what's working and what's not working. And also, to be honest, I didn't really like this movie. I just like the poncho that Clint Eastwood wears the whole time. And with that, there's my contact information in case you don't have it. And that's my part of the presentation.
Thank you, Rachel. And actually, that was a great movie.
We can all disagree as civilized friends.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions for Rachel or Michael at this time? Questions, comments? Good, bad, ugly? Everybody's so quiet.
Bobby, I would just like to say Rachel has not been here long, but she's done an excellent job, and I'm really pleased that she is our region rep for the Southeast. So I welcome her, and you guys are lucky to have her.
Thank you.
Oh, we know. Definitely. Did I raise my hand? Oh, I didn't lower my hand.
I think it was just up from before.
I can't follow the rules here. So, does anybody else have any questions about anything that Michael talked about? Comments, anything that's coming up that you're curious about? I will stay in touch with Michael and Rachel, and of course, we've got Clint and Tim on here, and I work closely with Gary on my board, and we'll do everything I can. Rachel and I working together to get all of that information out to all 75 districts. So I'm excited. I think tonight was very informative, and we might not have had a lot of participants on, but we're going to get this out and share it with everybody. Everybody's out Christmas shopping. That's what it is. So I guess I should get that done too, but I just want to thank you both very much, and I will definitely tap into those offers of I have a call coming in, somebody probably trying to get on, of using these resources. And I know we've had a lot of success with the Education Hub, and very appreciative of NACD. I remember when I called and asked them if we could promote it on our website, just as it's laid out on the NACD website, and just making sure that we, you know, give recognition to where those materials come from. But I know our districts are very much appreciative, especially for the poster contest and whatnot. And we're really getting into promoting more ideas for Stewardship Week. So with that, again, just thank you both
It
for.
looks like, sorry, Bobby, it looks like Bob and Gary might have questions.
Oh, okay.
This is Bob. I'd like to apologize for being a little late getting on. Somehow I couldn't find the link. And thanks for a good presentation, Michael and Rachel. We appreciate your activity and your assistance on this. And I would also like to apologize for not getting back to Michael. I apparently saved a wrong phone number for him, and I suddenly found out today somebody returned the call and they said, "I'm not Michael, I'm Keith or somebody else." So anyway, anytime you're in this area, give a call. I'd like to show you around, and we'll keep in touch.
Thank you for everything you do, Bob. It's an honor to be president of NACD, and I get to meet people like you all across the US. So hopefully I don't get stuck in Denver Airport. I've been there 5 times now overnight, and got stuck there recently on a trip back to Indiana to my farm, and got a hotel room and got a good night's sleep, and thankfully got home the next day, because a lot of people stayed there a few days. So just in general, it really is an honor to be president and represent so many people. Thank you to Colorado for the dues that you pay for the sending Bob and Gary and allowing them to represent Colorado on our board. It's really an honor to know Bob. He's one of the best humans you will get to meet.
Thank you.
I guess it's my turn now, Michael. The Colorado, Cindy Lair with the Colorado Department of Agriculture, they did a real excellent short video on Bob's ranch, and kind of a conservation hero kind of a video, and you need to check that out if you have time.
I have seen it. It very quickly made it through NACD. So
yeah, good. Yeah, glad to hear that. It was fun doing that. The other question I have is for the spring fly-in. Is that virtual this year, or are you planning a in-person event?
At this point, we're planning an in-person event. We'll see what happens. Eventually, you'll think this stuff will go away. I've been saying that for 1.5 years and have been wrong so far, but we're proceeding as it's going to be in person. We'll certainly keep everybody updated. Right now, we're focused on the annual meeting in February, and that is in person. We are going to be there. And I think we're a little shy of where we were in pre-COVID, but very happy with the registration so far. Who knows what will happen, but right now we're plugging away just like we were before. Trying to, at least.
Well, it was my idea to try these webinars instead of breakout sessions, and I'm still waiting to see if it's been a success or not. But yeah. I sure appreciate both you and Rachel participating with us.
Sure. There's certainly a feeling of Zoom fatigue now after almost 2 years of doing this. And I get it. This is my 7th one today. So I'm feeling a little Zoom fatigue myself, but it allows me, I was in Southeast region 15 minutes before I was in Colorado, and sometimes I'm in multiple states at once. So these are nice ways to see people face to face. If we can't be face to face, there's certainly an advantage over this over a phone call, over nothing, but it doesn't take the place of being together in person. You know, everybody says it, but it's really nice. We had an executive board and staff officer retreat last week in DC, and it was really good to hear the staff and get the feedback between the staff and leadership. Very much enjoyed that.
Okay, well, we're coming upon the hour. Just to check to make sure if there's anyone else who would like to say anything or has any other questions. If not, I just want to thank you both again very much for working with me to put this together, and everybody have a very Merry Christmas, and I will get this out as soon as possible within the next few days so we can get it shared far and wide. And I know that it will be very beneficial to the districts of Colorado. So thank you both again, and good night, everyone. Thank you, everyone who joined us. Good night.
Thank you.
Talk to you in the morning.
Yes, thanks.